Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters and Budgeting 101. My name is Shane Hiralal, and I will be your host for this mini workshop. As mentioned previously, I work within the big five companies in the professional services over the last 14 years, and I work with small businesses, solopreneurs, and startups as well with their money matters. So I don't know if most of the accountants here tonight are like me, where I'm really good at managing other people's money, but not very good at managing my own money. I was probably around 2021 when I moved to Dubai and started earning my own money. And as you know, Dubai is tax free, so you don't pay any tax. And to the contrary of what Joseph said, growing up in Zimbabwe, we didn't have a lot of money, but however, we did have a maid because the unemployment rate in in Zimbabwe is about 95%. So there's a large population that doesn't have any job. So even though we don't have a lot of money growing up in Zimbabwe, we could afford to have a maid just because the supply was ridiculous. So in my early 20s, moved to Dubai, started earning my own money. I was very careless because I was like a kid in a factory, in a sweet factory. And to give you some context, in Dubai, it is a very luxurious country. You can get anything that you want. For example, to tell you the extent of the craziness that I got up to, I hired a 16-seater Hummer limo to get some pizza. So it was a very expensive night out, and we were driving around in Dubai, and I just splurged on that. And then I also splurged on a weekend hiring a yacht because I could, and it's ridiculous because when I looked at my bank account one day, I was very shocked because I had no idea where my money went. And it hit me at that point in time when I realized, growing up in Zimbabwe, I always had one question: how do millionaires and celebrities get broke? Because I would watch all these rappers talk about going into debt, but they were millionaires, and I didn't quite comprehend that until, not saying I was a millionaire, by the way, but until I looked at my bank account and it was the lifestyle that I was living, that I wanted to maintain that luxury and that lifestyle, and I was just racking up debt. And there was one particular event I really wanted to go to, but I didn't have enough money to go to that. And that's when I realized I should have budgeted properly, because out of all the events that I went to with my friends, so-called friends, that I didn't really want to go to certain events. The one event that I wanted to go to, I couldn't afford to go to because I had no budget, no savings. So that's when I realized money is very, very important. And I quite like the saying by Les Brown, who is one of my inspirations. He's a motivational speaker. If you do what is easy, that is going with the flow right now, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, that is being disciplined right now, your life will be easy. So in today's agenda, we will be covering 4 topics. The first one is what and why have a budget. Then we'll talk about differences between needs and wants. Believe me, some of us don't know what is the difference between need and want, so we'll unpack that. We'll go through 3 simple steps of creating your budget, and you can do this straight away after the session. And we'll talk about tips and best practices of budgeting as well. So, can anyone here tell me what you think a budget is? So, I can't see anyone's faces, but if you want to shout out or put yourself on unmute or raise your hand, and Joseph will pick you. Can you let me know what you think a budget is? So, what is a budget?
Kevin.
I think you're on mute.
I would have said budget was what your expected income is matched against what the future expenditures are. You have certain fixed expenditures, but you have also choice expenditures along the way. So it's about matching those with the core values that you want to stand by you.
Absolutely, and that is spot on.
Rio?
Fantastic, thanks, Rio. Okay, so as you can see from the slide, a budget is an estimate of income and expenditure over a set period of time, and I quite like this picture because it depicts what most people are doing today is they're living paycheck to paycheck, which is, whatever income they get, they're spending it, and they're breaking even. But as human beings, we have a tendency to like those and follow those bright, shiny objects, and we have these wants and desires. So our expenses keep racking up, and quite quickly we end up in something called debt, which is where we do not want to be. We want to be in a position not just breaking even, but having a contingency plan of savings of some sort. And for example, what's happening right now, I don't think any of us expected COVID to affect us all. But a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people, including myself, have taken a pay cut. And some statistics that I find very interesting is that 54% of Australians do not have any savings. So this is a statistic from end of 2019, just before COVID hit. So 54% had zero savings. So it's quite important to prepare for the rainy day and have those savings. And another statistic that I quite like was 62% of millionaires rely on a budget to manage their money. I think that statistic is understated, because this is a survey based on the results that they had. So I reckon it's probably 80 to 90% of millionaires that rely on a budget. So why do you think it is important to have a budget? You guys can shout out some answers. Why do you think it's important to have a budget? We touched on some points, but what are your opinions?
Yusuf?
Well, if you have a budget, it shows you where your means are, so you make sure that doesn't put you into a situation where you're stressed. So budget puts parameters on what you can get and what you can't get. Therefore, you start living within your means instead of starting to buy things that are outside your budget and put yourself into a stress zone.
Absolutely.
John?
Yeah, I was going to just say something similar, like something in planning, so that you make considered decisions and not just running wild.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Joseph. So absolutely, you've touched on some of those points. So managing stress. That kind of looks like me when I had my grey hair at some point in time. It's kind of going, but managing stress. So having a budget reduces your stress. Saving for a rainy day, saving for emergencies. If you want to start your own business, to decrease your debt. And I quite like the middle one. Money does buy you happiness. I remember going to a seminar once, and the presenter said, those people that think that money doesn't buy you happiness are probably broke. And I felt very offended by that, because I was broke at the time. But I realized quite quickly that it is what I can do with having money that buys me happiness. So there you go. Okay, so overall, having a budget will improve your financial position to increase your net worth. Now, what is your net worth? I did a video on my channel, on my YouTube channel called Sow and Succeed, that I won't go into too much detail of, but it's important that we understand what the definition of your net worth is. So I'll just play that quickly. So a lot of people think net worth is something that you actually hear about from celebrities, and only they have net worths, rich people and things like that. But that isn't the case. Every single one of us has a net worth, and that is simply calculated by saying, what exactly do I own minus what do I owe? And it's as basic as that. How much do I own versus how much do I owe? So in a nutshell, definition of net worth is how much do you own versus how much do you owe. So the point that I want to hone in is that budgeting actually bridges that gap between the two, and when you start to budget properly, you will actually significantly start to increase your net worth over time. And I'll go through a really quick example of that. So, as we said, net worth is defined as what you own minus what you owe. So in this example, let's say what you own is you have a car of $5,000, you have income of $10,000 today, and so what you own is $15,000. And how much you owe today is you have some credit cards of $5,000 and some expenses of $2,000. So you owe $7,000. So therefore your net worth is the difference between these two, being you have a net worth of a positive $8,000. So in general, you want to obviously be in a positive net worth position, But depending on your stages of life, I know that some students that are starting up, they might have a government funding for their education, so they might have a net worth of negative, but over time that will obviously start to get closer and closer to the positive mark. So now that we know what a budget definition is, and now that we know what the definition of your net worth is, let us talk about needs and wants. So can anyone tell me or give me examples of needs? You can shout out examples of needs.
Rio?
Yeah. Okay. So needs is something you say you must have or you need to have, and want is something you wish to have.
And could you give an example of a need? Like what is one example?
For
of
example, need food.
Need food?
Shelter,
Absolutely. Yep.
Clothes is a need, and want can be expensive car, some travel to overseas. That's wants. That's by
Yep.
definition.
Fantastic.
Peter?
Yeah. Lee is I need water, I need rice and bread, and I need a small unit for my family to sleep in. What I want that mansion next to the beach. I want the Ferrari car, and I don't want to eat my own cooking. I would like to go to Star Casino buffet every day. Yes.
Thank you. Layal?
Basic things to survive, like Maslow said. So a need is something you have to survive. Yeah.
Okay. Shane, back to you.
Thank you, Joseph, and thanks all for your comments. Absolutely, you hit the nail on the bud. So there are 5 needs typically for an average human being. That is rent, utilities, food, insurance, and clothes. So back in the day, it used to be called, as Rio said, shelter, food, and clothes. Shelter, food, and clothes. That's what you'd always hear. This day and age, for the average human being, we do need utilities for the shelter we live in, and we do need insurance. For example, in Australia, it is mandatory to have insurance. So I would classify your needs into these top 5 brackets. That being said, wants is everything else outside of this. However, because everyone has different lifestyle choices, as you've heard from the examples given, some people would consider having certain things as a need, like going away every weekend as a need for them, and that's their prerogative and that's their lifestyle choice. But in a nutshell, the needs are typically, for the average, these 5 items, and we can split our expenses into fixed and variable. For example, you have rent, which typically is fixed, such as having $300 a week, and that is a fixed cost or fixed expense. And variable expenses are things like how many times you go to the cinema, or how many gifts you buy your friends. You might have this month 5 people having birthdays, so those are variable costs, or eating outside 5 times this month versus other times. So what we will do now is, now we understand those concepts, we will start to build and create our budget. So I'll talk you through 3 simple steps of creating your budget. Step number 1, summarize. What I'd like you all to do at the end of this session, or first thing tomorrow morning, is sign up for internet banking. And if you don't already have this, I recommend getting your downloads of your monthly transactions in Excel. So the first step is to download at least 3 months worth of your expenses and income, your bank statements for the last 3 months. Because let's face it, as humans, our tendencies are, our habits don't really change too much. So over the last 3 months, as a starting point, if you've never created a budget, download those transactions and then code them into income and expenses from what we've just said. So split out your expenses into your rent, your utilities, your food, your clothing, etc. So just a couple of brackets, and your income. If it's just your salary, then that's okay as well. What we want to do is analyze month 1, month 2, month 3. So summarize that first in step 1, and step 2 is analyze those categories. Now you have put pen to paper, as it says, and you have month 1, month 2, month 3, and you can actually see the insights as to where my money is going. How much am I actually spending on these expense categories. And if there's some categories that you notice that you need to add, so instead of having those 5 categories, you have at least another 2 more. I recommend no more than 10 categories. You'll start to sort of see trends. And if there's one-offs, those one-offs will start to stick out, and you'll notice, oh my goodness, I actually spend every month, I'm spending too much money on birthday gifts, or I'm spending too much money on buying those sneakers. I have 30 pairs in my closet already. I don't need these. So now you're analyzing that, and there's some value in that data. And the last one is measuring. So now you've got your 3 months, you can see where your money is going. At this point in time, you have the knowledge to now do a forecast. As at today, what is my budget going to be for the next month? You kind of have a sense already what that will be, and you document and you write down, okay, for these categories, I'm going to spend X, Y, Z on these expenses, and stick to it. And you have to be disciplined, because at the end of the month, you're going to do a look back comparison and see how you went in terms of your budget, and tweak that as you go. You're not going to get it right the first time, but as a starting point, that is your steps to starting to measure your budgeting processes, and it will become more and more accurate the more consistent you do this on a monthly basis and repeat that process. So in a nutshell, those are your 3 simple steps.
Shane, can I just make a point?
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Joseph. And it's so true. When you start, and a lot of us, we want our net worth or our income to increase over time and our savings to increase, but we're not tracking anything. And if you fail to track or measure your numbers, you will basically be in a catch-22 position. And so you need to start off somewhere. And there's a saying that says, once you start to measure the 20% that is important, that 20% will make up for your 80% of where you need to be. And this is a starting point in order to get from where you are to where you need to be and increase your net worth. So absolutely, there's these small numbers that make a difference. So I'll quickly share the tips and tricks and best practices that I found for your money matters and budgeting. So the first one is in your expenses. I'll share with you 3 top tips. The first one, as a rule of thumb for best practices, is that your rent should never be more than 30% of your monthly income. So that is a rule of thumb. And I know Sydney is quite expensive, but you guys can calculate if you need to start charging your subtenants a bit more so you can get the 30% back, or start firing yourself and moving to somewhere else. But as a rule of thumb, 30% of your monthly income should be your rent. The second one, as Joseph mentioned, is cooking versus eating out. Now, this thing I have actually also experimented with, and it's the second biggest expense for us all after rent, because we all need food, right? And I'll give you a quick example so you can understand the value of the money. Is Uber Eats is something that I really like, and it's convenient, it's quick, and I think I'm saving money. However, I would spend money on groceries, say $100 per week, but at the same time, I would eat Uber Eats at least 3 times, and each meal costs on average $20. So $20 times 3 within a week is $60, which doesn't seem like a lot. I'm like, $60. But to understand the value of where your money is going, I highly recommend to always multiply by 12 to get how much it's going to cost you in a year, or multiply by 52 weeks, depending on what you're measuring. So in this example, I thought it's only $20. It's fine. I'll just spend $20. 20 times 3 is $60 times 12 months is $3,120. Now, if I gave you $3,120 today in cash, will that, will you be happy with that? Could you go on a holiday? Could you buy all the toilet paper you want in the world with that? Absolutely. So it's now understanding that value of any little expense that you do have makes a significant difference when you multiply by 12 for 52, and then you will make those decisions based on that. The third one for your expenses is your direct debits and subscriptions. I highly recommend, when you do your monthly monitoring of your expenses, check in where your direct debits are going, because these are automatic payments, and subscriptions. We all on our mobile phones, Netflix, this app, that app, this free trial, and we forget about it. And again, the power of multiplying by 52 weeks or 12 months, you will see where your money is going, and all of that little stuff adds up. Then the next one is savings. This significantly changed my life. I wasn't very good at savings, as I mentioned. And what I recommend, and it's so simple if you have online banking, is creating 3 savings accounts. Just 3 savings accounts. And those are, number 1, don't touch savings account, once savings account, and emergency savings account. The first one, don't touch. I recommend 10 to 15% is put away off your monthly salary and you don't touch it. The second one is, I recommend 5 to 10% being once. If you want that Louis Vuitton bag or those shoes, 5 to 10%. Similarly, emergencies, 5 to 10% for you never know what can happen. If there was a doctor's emergency, your family needs some funds. This way, your don't touch increases over time. The second one, once you can see, if I want those sneakers this month, I have $200, I'll wait till next month and then buy it. So you're a little bit disciplined and you have that emergency funds. Okay. Overall, what we're finding is that too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people that they don't like. I think we can all resonate with this at some point or other in our life, but the fundamentals come down to these 3 things. The first one is decisions. I encourage you to ask yourself the first question, do I need this? The second question, do I need this right now? And the third one is, what will happen if I don't have this? Never impulse buy. The second one is habits. A lot of people say to me that when I have more money, I'll start to, look after my money. I'll start to do my budgeting properly and, take care of the money that I'm starting to earn. But if you have bad habits of money right now with the money that you are earning, imagine if I give you $1 million today, you are going to have those same habits and you're going to lose it just like this. But if I give you $1 million right now and you have good money practices, you will double that $1 million. You will invest it and you will double it, triple it, whatever it is. So those money habits need to be instilled from right now. And the last one is value. Valuing money is again that 20-80%, and it's valuing the 20% makes 80% difference in your life. And I'll share the example in Dubai. I was very embarrassed of coins when I was in Dubai. I actually forgot that I wasn't very well off in Zimbabwe, in Africa. But when I would get coins at a groceries and they give me change, I would be very embarrassed and I'd be very ashamed. I'm like, no, I don't want coins. It was beneath me. And even coins in my pocket, I didn't want it jingling around because it made me feel like, why do I want coins? Why do I have coins? I'm poor. I did not value money. And over time, I ended up in a lot of debt when I was in Dubai because I did not value money. When I realized the importance of money, I literally shifted my mindset. And even 1 cent and 5 cents, when the grocer will give me back the 5 cents or 10 cents that before I'd flog off, I actually picked that up and I was very grateful, and I started having the practice of valuing the 5 cent, being grateful for the 1 cent. And I'm telling you, it significantly changed my net worth because I started shifting my habits and the way I saw money, and it's just been an uphill increase in my net worth. So try it for yourself in terms of valuing money. A quick snippet shot of what a budget looks like is over here. So let's say your salary is $60,000 per annum. That is $5,000 per month. You split out 30%, which is your rent, which is $1,500, and your groceries, etc., etc. These are the different expenses you can split out if you want between fixed and variable, as it shows over here. You could split your expenses into fixed and variable, but I've just kept it simple to say, this is my income, this is my expenses. And then your savings account, where I said savings 1, 2, 3, 10 to 15%, 5 to 10% for these two. So you can see already in 1 month, you have 1,250. And in 12 months, the money that you do not touch, you will have $9,000 in your bank account. For savings number 2, you will have $3,000 for your wants. You could go on a nice holiday. And savings number 3, you have an emergency fund. You have $15,000 that you can do. And what I find most people do is they go 5,000, they reduce their expenses, and then they see what's left. Do not do this. What you should do is you go 5,000, then you remove your savings. Okay? 1, 2, 3. And then whatever is left, you do your budgeting and stick to that. A lot of us go around in the rat race because we do income minus expenses. I have nothing at the end of the day, so nothing gets saved. What I recommend is changing that, going, this is my income, removing this, and then doing expenses. And if you're not disciplined, guys, I am here for you. Just transfer me all your money and I will monitor and maintain your do not touch savings for you. I'm very trustworthy. After all, I am an accountant. So that is a budget example. So in summary, money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as the driver. And what we learned today was how to do a budget and how to monitor your budget, savings and the importance of splitting it out, the difference between needs and wants, and changing your mindset in terms of your decisions, your habits, and the way you value money. The last tip that I really feel that I should share is, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? And one thing that I learned is negotiation. Negotiate, every single one of you, your utilities, your Telstra, your phone bills, your Wi-Fi. What I found is I call them up randomly and I'm just like, okay, you know what, I'm not really happy with my service. Don't even be serious, but just say that. Just, I'm thinking of moving to that. You will be astounded at the deals you get. And I found this out because one day I was not happy with something and I did that genuinely. And they literally slashed $20 off my bill every month. And they gave me from 10 GB to 30 GB. And in my mind, I was thinking, if I didn't call today, I would never get this. And now I'm in a habit of doing that negotiation. And it's simple. If you don't ask, you don't get. Does anyone have any questions?